Hi, thank you so much for joining me once again in the Louie file. We are in the middle, I say middle, we're in the process, I guess, maybe, of going through Romans chapters 5 through 8, and I'm glad you joined me. If you're just popping into this one, I would highly suggest you go back and start at I think the first video was Romans 5, starting in verse 12, so it's the Louie file, Romans 5, 12 through whatever that is. I'm not even positive at the moment. But we've been going verse by verse, and today finds us at Romans 7, verse 7. Romans 7 is such a I think a misunderstood chapter, and I'm hoping that as we go through these verses, I'm doing it slow and clear enough to where you will come to know and understand what Paul is really saying and how he's walking us through this chapter and how he's doing it and for what purpose, because I really do believe that this is our ticket to freedom, real freedom. You know, Romans 5 tells us that we're in sin because of Adam. Romans 6 tells us that we can be freed from sin because God says that when Jesus Christ died, we can put our faith in his death and we can count it as our own death, so we can be freed from sin and no longer a slave to sin. We can now be a slave or a servant to righteousness. And then in Romans 7, the Apostle Paul moves from slave and master analogy to husband and wife. And he says that we have not only died to sin, but we have also died to the law. And the reason is that when we're operating according to law, really what we end up getting is sin, because in 1 Corinthians 15:56 the Bible tells us that the strength of sin is the law. Sin gets its power by way of the law. This does not mean that God's holy and perfect law causes sin, but what it does is it brings it up, it exposes it, and until we know the secret, until we know the liberating truth, we will be manipulated by sin that uses God's very own law against us. So let's read Romans 7 verse 6 first, and then we'll go into 7 here. Romans 7 verse 6 says, "But now we have been released from the law, having died to that by which we were bound, so that we serve in newness of the Spirit and not in oldness of the letter." So the law, the letter, is the old system that in Galatians the Apostle Paul says that the law is our schoolmaster to lead us to Christ. So once we come to Christ, we start to operate according to the Spirit instead of the letter, or attempting in a supposed fleshy independent way to keep the commandments of God that end up giving us the opposite effect, really, of what we thought they would. So now Paul starts to dig down, and if you read the Romans 7, this rest of this chapter here, and you start to realize that what Paul is doing here is he's analyzing, or he's digging in, and he's pulling apart what exactly is my problem then. What is this sin thing in relation to God's law, and is the law the problem? That's where he starts with. So in Romans 7:7, he says, "What shall we say then? Is the law sin?" I mean, if we died to the oldness of the letter, if we're no longer under that, and God wanted us to be not under that, then does that mean that it was sin? He says, "May it never be. On the contrary, I would not have come to know sin except through the law. For I would not have known about coveting if the law had not said, 'You shall not covet.'" So he's saying, okay, so the law can't be bad because it's telling me the truth. The law is telling me the truth. Thou shalt not covet. That's a good law. It's a good commandment. So the law itself is good. Then he says, Romans 7:8, "But sin, taking opportunity through the commandment, produced in me coveting of every kind. For apart from the law, sin is dead. I was once alive apart from the law, but when the commandment came, sin became alive and I died. And this commandment, which was to result in life, proved to result in death for me. For sin, taking an opportunity through the commandment, deceived me, and through it killed me. So then the law is holy, and the commandment is holy and righteous and good. Therefore did that which is good become a cause of death for me? May it never be. Rather it was sin, in order that it might be shown to be sin by effecting my death through that which is good, so that through the commandment sin would become utterly sinful. All right, so he's analyzing the law here. I think I shared on the last video about why God gave the law, and it's shown to us in Romans 3:19 and 20, and it says that the law was given so that every mouth would be closed, like just shut up, that we would become accountable to God, and that through the law we would become knowledgeable of sin. We would come to know sin. So it wasn't given, God didn't give it with the idea that anyone could really keep it, as if, apart from Him. I mean, it's the perfect and holy law of God. Who can do that except God Himself? But until we know this, until we have the revelation, we continue to attempt to do what the law says to do, or the commandments given, because we still are in a deceived state, believing the lie of independence, that we can be like God. So therefore we attempt to do that. So Paul is saying here, he's asking the question, well, is the law the problem? Well, no, the law is not really the problem. He says, because actually the law has given me the knowledge of sin, and it's showing me that coveting is wrong. So having the knowledge that coveting is wrong is a good thing. But the problem I'm having is even though I know that I shouldn't covet, I'm in a position here where it seems to be creating more sin. It seems like sin is taking advantage of me. When you see that sign that says, "Do not walk on the grass," there's something within me that wants to just go get on the grass and walk around. And when I see that bench over there in the park that says, "Don't touch wet paint," well, I'm going to go touch it because I'm compelled. See, the law, the command, do not touch or do not walk on the grass, or the command itself is a good thing, because it's warning us, it's showing us something, it's telling us something, but there's no ability in me to not do it. So Paul says, when I saw that the law, the commandment says do not covet, although I agree that's a good thing, that's the law of God, it's a good thing, I'm having this struggle inside, that sin is going, okay, I'm going to stop. And somehow, even though mentally we want to, or psychologically, or however you want to put it, we want to stop, we just can't stop. Somehow it's triggering the opposite result. So we're in this weird, spinning, disturbing, trying and failing thing. But first, before we get into that, I want to show you something here. I know I touched on this in an earlier video, probably in chapter 5, I would imagine. But it seems that the Apostle Paul, he gives this word, or this term, sin, the ability to do things. It's as though it's a person, or it's an entity of some kind. Let's say Romans 7:8 says, but sin taking opportunity. So sin is taking opportunity through the commandment and producing in me coveting. Oh, so wait a minute. It's producing. Sin is operating in me to produce coveting. Let's see, if you look back for just a second, Romans 7 verse 5 says, for while we were in the flesh, or while we were in this deceived state of independence as a human being, the sinful passions, which were aroused by the law, were at work in the members of our body to bear fruit for death. So there was some sinful passions that were provoked into action when we were attempting to live by keeping the law as if we really could. So there's this deception in us of this independent will that I can do and I can stop doing. I have a friend of ours that says that we don't have, human beings really don't have any willpower. and that sounds crazy, but we don't have willpower. We have will, we have a will, but we really are a partaker of some other power. God himself is the only real power. But here we see that as long as we're living in the lie of independence, thinking and believing that we can keep God's law, as if I can just willfully stop coveting, then when I'm believing that, when I'm living in that, the sinful passions are aroused in me. The law stirs up this coveting thing even more and produces coveting of every kind. Romans 7 verse 8 says, for apart from the law, sin's dead. So sin really is just kind of dormant in your life until there's something to provoke it into action. I think it was Watchman Nee, and he was talking about the clumsy butler. I don't want to steal his analogy or his illustration here, but I want to use it, give him credit. But I think it was Watchman Nee. He said that, imagine, if you will, there's a nice room, kind of a parlor or something, if you will, and it has some couches and a footrest, and it might have a hutch with dishes and a desk or a table with some fine, silverware or something. And when you look into this room, you see this butler, this man, and he's got a suit on, and he's got the perfect haircut, he's got nice shiny shoes on, and he's sitting in a chair with his feet up on the footrest. And you're showing your guest, well, look here, and then your guest goes, oh, what a marvelous butler. He looks great, looks perfect. Look at the room, it's all in order. And you go, yes, that's true, but watch this. And then you give him a command. You tell him to go across the room and get something off the table. Well, as soon as he stands up, he trips over the footrest, knocks something off the table, knocks some books off the shelf, falls to the ground, bumps his head, and you go, oh my, what a clumsy butler. And you go, yes, that's true. See, but he was clumsy all along. But his clumsiness wasn't revealed or made manifest until he was given a command. And once he was given a command, now you see that he was very clumsy all along. So as long as he's stationary, dormant, and there's no command given, he seems to appear okay. See, and this is why God gives the law. He's provoking with his perfect law this sin that is within all of us because of the fall, because of our intimate ties with Adam and our common heritage with the spirit of error. We seem to just slide on through life. But the good news is God eventually he confronts us in some way. Some way, somehow, the truth is held up in front of us. James likens the law like a mirror to a mirror. So the law shows up, and it says to Paul, says, do not covet. And he goes, oh, wow, I didn't even know what coveting was until that law was given. And then I was like, whoa, now I'm realizing I'm coveting all the time. It became apparent to him that he had sin in him. So ultimately, the law is a good thing that it brings this to our attention. As painful and as alarming as it might be, that we have something within us we don't like and really kind of wish wasn't there, it's a good thing for it to be exposed. You go to the doctor, you get an x-ray, and they tell you have a tumor somewhere in your body. You don't want to hear that. But it's not the x-ray's fault. You can't get upset with the x-ray. And in fact, the x-ray's job is just to expose the problem. The doctor themselves is the only one, the surgeon, now is going to have to go in and deal with the problem, right? So the x-ray leads you to the solution, which is found only in the person that is the expert in that field. And in our case here, we're talking about Jesus Christ. The law is there to lead us to Christ. But first we have to become aware that we even need a Christ. So Romans 7:9, I was once alive apart from the law. My life seemed to be okay. But when the commandment came, sin became alive and I died. All of a sudden it was like the horror of it all. Oh my gosh, is this really what and who I am? What is going on with me? Why am I acting this way? I know coming out of an addiction lifestyle, there's probably lots of times in my life where I woke up the day after and thought, I did what? Why did I do that? That is not who I am. In other words, I'm thinking that's not my character. But what's happening is that the enemy, the spirit of error, this Mr. Sin that's taking opportunity and producing this thing and becoming alive in me, is really manifesting himself. It's his personality. It's who he is that's coming through. And you have little moments of shock throughout your life, but eventually you're going to have one big moment of shock. There's going to be an earthquake in your psyche, an earthquake in your spirit, something that's going to rattle you to the core, and it's going to force you to look for help. And that's where Paul's heading in this letter right here. So sin takes opportunity through the commandment, Romans 7:11, and deceives me and then kills me. So it uses the law against me. It's sin's attempt. So God gives the law to shake and awaken us to our state, but sin takes advantage of the law in hopes to shut us down, condemn us, and even immobilize and kill us with it. Get us so rattled and beside ourselves that we're ineffective, and we just find ourselves in this spin of chasing our tail. I do not covet. Well, I don't want to covet, but I keep coveting more. The more I try to stop coveting, the more coveting seems to pop up in my life. See, the devil, Mr. Sin, would just have us right there, perpetually under a state of condemnation, fear, anxiety, guilt, and shame, and paranoia. The feelings of, I'm not able to live life, I'm just a worm, I'm inadequate. Because he's taking advantage of the law of God. So God gives it to expose our problem with the belief that we'll come to him to get the solution. But meanwhile, sin interjects and just abuses us with it. So Romans 7:12 says, so then the law is holy, and the commandment is holy and righteous and good. So then he says, therefore did that which is good become a cause of death for me? May it never be. Say, rather it was sin. See, the law is not really the cause of the death. It's sin taking advantage and opportunity and manipulating us through God's holy and good law, righteous and good law. So it says, rather it was sin in order that it might be shown to be sin by effecting my death through that which is good, so that through the commandment sin would become utterly sinful. So the law comes in to expose the problem we have, but it can't really fix the problem. Like the x-ray. The x-ray exposes the tumor, but you would never look at the x-ray and go, well, go in there and fix it. You would never get up in the morning and go look in your bathroom mirror and see your hair needs combed and your face needs washed and all that, and go and expect the mirror to do it. You wouldn't take the mirror off the wall to brush your hair, would you? Brush your teeth? No. The mirror is there to show you the problem, but then you got to go get the toothbrush or the hairbrush or the washcloth. The x-ray is there to lead you to the doctor to perform the surgery to fix the problem. All right. I hope this has helped you. We're going to move into Romans 7 verse 14 in the next file. I hope you'll join me there. Until then, I pray that God would give you wisdom and insight into what the Apostle Paul is really saying in these verses. I'll see you next time.